My brother's fiancée tried to kiss me. I told my brother immediately, but he won't believe me and just says I am crazy. So my brother Dan, 28M, is engaged to Emily, 26F. I'm Jake, 25M. We're all pretty close in age, and we've always gotten along. Dan and I have always been tight. He's not just my older brother. He's been my best friend most of my life. We lost our dad a few years ago, and since then we've leaned on each other a lot. I was so happy for him when he got engaged to Emily last year. She seemed great, friendly, smart, and she fit in with our family really well. I honestly was thrilled to have her as a future sister-in-law, until now. 4 nights ago, we had a small family dinner at our mom's house to celebrate Dan and Emily setting a wedding date. It was just me, Dan, Emily, our mom, and a couple of close family friends. It wasn't a wild party or anything, but there was some wine and champagne for toasts. Everyone was in a good mood. I remember Emily was a bit quieter than usual during dinner, but I figured maybe she was just tired or something. Nothing really out of the ordinary. After dinner, people were hanging out in the living room. I went into the kitchen to wash some dishes and put away leftovers. I'm one of those people who can't relax if there's a mess. A few minutes later, Emily came into the kitchen too. She offered to help me dry the dishes. We were chatting about the dinner, the food, normal stuff. I noticed she was standing a bit closer to me than usual, but again, nothing that screamed red flag at that moment. I handed her a plate to dry, and that's when it happened. Emily set the plate on the counter, and when I turned to give her another, she was suddenly right in front of me. Before I could react, she said, "You've been so great tonight," in this really soft voice. I kind of laughed and said thanks, but I was definitely confused. Then she put her hand on my arm and said, "You're really sweet, Jake." I immediately felt weird. Like, my stomach flipped. This was not how my brother's fiancée usually talks to me. I kind of froze up, and before I could do anything, she leaned in. And I don't mean a casual, oops, I stumbled, lean in. I mean she straight up leaned in to kiss me. She came this close to my lips. I jerked back instinctively, almost slipping on the floor. I was like, "Whoa, Emily, what are you doing?" She pulled back, and her eyes were wide. I'll never forget the look on her face. It was a mix of panic and something else, maybe regret or fear. For a second, I thought she was going to start crying. She just blurted out, I'm so sorry," and bolted out of the kitchen back toward the living room. I stood there in shock, heart pounding. My mind was racing. Did that really just happen? Why would she do that? Did I do something to give her the idea that No, I couldn't think of anything. I felt guilty for even worrying I might have led her on somehow. I barely interact with her outside of family gatherings, and it's always been friendly, nothing more. I was honestly so confused and kind of in denial that she just did that. I splashed some water on my face. Cliché, I know, but I was freaking out, and tried to compose myself. When I went back out, Emily was acting completely normal. Like, completely normal. She was laughing at something my mom said, her face not showing any of the panic I saw just moments before. That messed with my head even more. I started questioning if it even happened the way I thought. Maybe she tripped or leaned and I misinterpreted. But no, I was sure about what I saw and felt. She tried to kiss me. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to pull her aside and ask what the hell that was. Another part of me just wanted to get the hell out of there and process. I ended up sort of avoiding her and my brother the rest of the night. I pretended I had a headache coming on and left a bit early. On my drive home, 1,000 thoughts were bouncing around my head. Should I tell Dan? Would he even believe me? How would I even start that conversation? "Hey bro, congrats on your wedding date. Oh, by the way, your fiancé just tried to make out with me in the kitchen." I felt nauseous. I actually had to pull over at one point to calm down because I was shaking so hard, partly from the adrenaline of what happened and partly from dread about what I had to do next. I knew I had to tell him. Dan and I promised each other after our dad died that we'd always have each other's backs and never hide serious stuff. If I were in his shoes, I'd want to know, no matter how much it hurt. And this was major. If I didn't tell him, and she actually did this again, or cheated on him with someone else, I'd never forgive myself for staying quiet. So the next day, I called Dan and asked if we could meet up to talk. I made up something about needing his advice on a personal issue. I didn't want to drop this on the phone. We met at a coffee shop we both like. Neutral ground and public enough that maybe it would force us to keep our cool. Spoiler, that part didn't really work out. I barely slept the night before, by the way. I was anxious as hell. When I saw him at the cafe, he was all smiles, completely unsuspecting. He even joked, "This must be serious if you need coffee first thing." I tried to smile back, but I think I just looked sick. We got our drinks and sat down in a quiet corner. I realized I had no idea how to say it. I just kind of blurted, "Something happened at the dinner last night, and it's really bothering me." Immediately he looked concerned, like, "Did I say something to upset you?" Kind of concerned. I wish it had been something that simple. I struggled for a second, then just forced the words out. When I was in the kitchen, Emily came in and she tried to kiss me. Dan frowned like he didn't understand. So I went on, stumbling over my words. She leaned in like she was going to kiss me. She basically did try. I pulled away. I asked her what she was doing and she said sorry and left. There was this heavy silence. My brother just stared at me like I was speaking another language. Then he shook his head and said, "What? That's not funny, man." His voice was really quiet, like he was hoping he misheard me. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I said, "I'm not joking, Dan. I wish I was." She really did. I swear to you, I wouldn't lie about this. He looked down at his coffee, and I could see his jaw clenching. For a second, I thought maybe he'd believe me. Dan knows I'm not the type to lie about something big. But then he started shaking his head again, more firmly, and he looked up at me with this sort of angry, almost disgusted expression. He said, "Do you realize what you're saying? You're telling me that my fiancée, who is practically your sister, tried to cheat on me, with you. Do you even hear how insane that sounds?" I started to speak, but he cut me off. He was whisper yelling. You know, that angry low voice you do in public when you don't want to make a scene. Emily wouldn't do that. She wouldn't. She's been nothing but great to you and our family. Why would she throw that away and do something so messed up? I didn't have an answer. I could only say, "I don't know why. I was shocked too. But it happened, Dan. I swear it." I was pleading at this point. My eyes were actually getting watery, both from stress and just the hurt of him not immediately trusting me. He leaned back and just looked at me like he didn't know who I was. Then he said something that really stung. "Are you trying to prank me or something? Is someone putting you up to this? Because if not, do you have some kind of thing for Emily and you thought making up a lie would, I don't even know." That hit me like a slap. "What? No! I would never! How could you even say that?" I got loud, and a couple at a nearby table glanced over. I lowered my voice and continued, "Dan, I'm telling you the truth. I have zero interest in Emily. You know I'm with Lily, 24F, my girlfriend of 2 years. I would never in a million years try to mess with your relationship. Emily came on to me." He just kept shaking his head. He asked, "Did you have a fight with her or something? Did she say something to you that could have been misinterpreted?" It was like he was searching for any other explanation. I told him exactly what happened again, step by step, my voice breaking. The memory of it, and the fact that I even had to convince my own brother that it happened, had me almost in tears in this damn cafe. Finally, he just said, "I don't believe you." Flat out. "I can't believe you, Jake. I don't know what's gotten into you, but you must have misread something, or maybe you're the one who—" He didn't finish that, but I could see what he was insinuating. Now I was the one getting angry. "You think I tried to kiss her? And I'm flipping the story? Are you kidding me?" I might have been a little too loud, because the barista looked over with concern. Dan rubbed his temples. "Look, I'm trying to make sense of this. Emily would never cheat on me. She loves me. We're getting married in a few months. You must have misinterpreted. Maybe she tripped or went to hug you or something and you thought I cut him off. She didn't trip, Dan, and we don't hug like that. She was acting flirty and weird, then she tried to kiss me. There's no other way it could have been interpreted." He snapped back. "If she did that, why didn't you say something right then? Why not call her out in front of everyone? Why just leave early and tell me today?" I tried to explain. I was in shock. "I didn't want to blow up your engagement dinner in front of Mom and everyone. I thought it would be better to tell you privately." He just stared at me, lips pressed together. He looked both furious and like he might cry. Honestly, I felt the same. This was breaking my heart. Dan and I have never been like this with each other. We've had minor fights, but we've never yelled at each other like this. He stood up abruptly and said, "I need to talk to Emily about this." I said, "Of course you should. I want you to. Maybe she'll come clean." He just grabbed his coat and muttered, "We'll see," and left me sitting there. I felt like the worst person in the world. I texted him after he walked out, saying, "I'm sorry this is happening. I'm here if you want to talk more." He didn't respond. That night, I got a text from my mom, saying Dan and Emily dropped by to talk to her. In short, Emily told my mom and Dan that I made a move on her and that she pushed me away. I was stunned. I mean, I guess I shouldn't have been surprised she'd try to spin it, but reading that I had to read it like 5 times for it to sink in. She basically flipped the script completely. Mom said that Emily was very upset and embarrassed, and that Dan was furious but trying to get to the bottom of it. Mom sounded like she didn't know what to believe and wanted to hear my side. I immediately called my mom and told her everything. Exactly what I told Dan. She believed me, thank God. She said she had a feeling something was off because apparently Emily was crying and saying she felt uncomfortable around me now, which Mom said didn't sound like the Emily she knows. Emily has always been very confident and outspoken, not the type to act like a scared victim, according to Mom. Plus, Mom knows I wouldn't just randomly assault someone, especially not my brother's fiancé. Mom was angry that Dan didn't just talk to me first, before involving her. But Dan was always a bit of a hothead when he's emotional, and I think hearing Emily accuse me made him see red. So at least Mom is on my side, which is a relief. But my own brother is believing her over me. I get that he's in love with her, and probably in shock too, but it hurts like hell. I keep replaying the conversation with Dan, trying to think if there was anything else I could have said or done to convince him. Now I'm sitting here alone in my apartment, just kinda numb. The two people I'm closest to, Dan and Lily, my girlfriend, are not really here for me right now. One is physically away, and the other is emotionally. Lily is out of town for work until next week, and I've only told her a bit over text because I don't want to dump all this on her long distance, and text is not the way to discuss something this heavy. I feel so isolated. I did text Lily a brief summary, and she was shocked, but she says she believes me. She knows I've never liked Emily beyond normal friendship. Lily wanted to call Dan herself and give him a piece of her mind, but I asked her to wait until she's back, and we can figure this out together. The last thing I want is to make this an even bigger mess with more people directly involved and emotional. I haven't spoken to Dan since that coffee shop meeting earlier today, aside from hearing through Mom. I'm worried he's telling others, like maybe our close friends or extended family, that I tried to assault his fiancée or something. I don't know what she's filling his head with. I half expect to get an angry call from our older sister. She lives out of state, because if Dan told her Emily's lie, she'd be ready to skin me alive to protect him. I preemptively texted my sister to tell her there's a serious situation, and to please talk to me before believing anything. She hasn't responded yet. Might be asleep or busy. This is such a freaking nightmare. I keep thinking, what if I just hadn't said anything? Would that have been better? I'd know the truth, and she'd know the truth, but Dan would be happily ignorant. But no, I couldn't do that. He needs to know what kind of person he's marrying, even if he hates me for it right now. As it stands, my brother is furious with me and thinks I'm trying to wreck his relationship out of jealousy? Spite? I don't even know what he's thinking. He probably doesn't know what to think either, to be fair. I'm trying to have some empathy. If I were about to marry someone I love and someone told me they did something like this, it'd shatter my world. I'd probably not want to believe it either. But I'd like to think if it were Dan telling me something about my fiancé, I'd trust him over anyone. I thought we had that kind of trust. I feel sick, I can't eat, I barely slept since it happened. This whole thing is consuming me. Part of me wants to march over to their apartment and demand that we all sit down together and hash it out. But I doubt that would work. It might just turn into a screaming match, or, worst case, she might start fake crying that she's scared of me, or some bullshit. At this point, I think I need to step back and see what Dan does next. Mom is supposed to talk to him again tomorrow, and basically say she believes me. Maybe hearing that our mom sides with me will make him rethink things a bit. Or it might just entrench him further into defending Emily. I have no idea. I never wanted any of this. I just wanted to do the right thing by telling him. Now I've basically detonated a bomb in our family. This is literally one of those impossible situations you see on the internet and think, that could never be me, and yet here I am. If anyone's been through something remotely similar, how did you handle it? I feel like whatever I do, someone gets massively hurt. If I shut up, my brother marries someone unfaithful. If I tell the truth, which I did, I'm the bad guy, and my brother gets hurt anyway, and possibly marries her still, but now without me in his life. There's no winning here. I'm sorry this is so long and rambly. I'm running on zero sleep and a lot of anxiety. I needed to get it out. I'll take any advice or even just words of support because I feel like I'm going crazy. TLDR. My brother's fiancée tried to kiss me at a family dinner. I told my brother and he refused to believe me. She turned around and accused me of making a move on her. Now my brother is siding with her. My mom believes me, and I'm in a nightmare situation with my family torn apart just weeks before the wedding. Edit. I didn't expect to get responses so soon, but thank you for the comments coming in. To answer a couple questions. No, I was not drunk. I had one beer the whole night. And yes, I'm absolutely sure she intended to kiss me on the lips. It was not a hug or a miscommunication. I appreciate the advice some of you are giving. I'm considering whether to try and talk to Emily one-on-one, with someone else around or maybe recording, to get her to admit what really happened, but I'm also wary. I'll update when I have more information or if anything else happens. Thank you. Update 1, 3 days later. Hey everyone. I'm back with an update, and I wish I had better news. First, I want to say thank you for all the support and advice on my original post. I read through a ton of your comments and messages. It honestly helped just to know I'm not crazy and that others saw how messed up this situation is. A lot of you suggested things like trying to get proof, talking to my mom, already did, involving my sister, or even warning Emily's family. I've been trying to handle this as carefully as I can. It's been about 3 days since my original post. In that time, things have escalated in ways I didn't expect. And it's been an emotional roller coaster, to put it mildly. Update on my mom and brother. Mom did talk to Dan the day after my post, as she said she would. It did not go great. Apparently she told him straight up that she believes me. According to Mom, Dan got angry and defensive. He kept insisting that I must have been mistaken or lying, and he was upset Mom was taking my side. They argued, and it got pretty heated. Mom told me she hasn't seen him that enraged since we were teenagers, and he got in a fistfight with a kid who bullied me. Except this time, the rage was directed at me. Well, indirectly, since they were talking about me. She said Dan accused me of trying to wreck his relationship out of jealousy, or because I never liked Emily. For the record, I did like Emily before all this. We were never super close, but we never had issues. Mom tried to calm him down and reason with him. She asked him to at least consider that I had no reason to lie about this. She also apparently said something like, "Why would Jake make up something so horrible? What could he possibly gain?" She told me that Dan just responded with something about me always being competitive with him. That really hurt to hear. Yes, Dan and I have a bit of a competitive streak with sports and video games and dumb stuff, but never over something like this. And I've never been jealous of him in a way that would make me sabotage his happiness. I'm honestly stunned he would paint me that way. Anyway, that conversation ended with my mom telling Dan that she wanted all of us, me, Dan, and Emily, to sit down together and talk it out. She thought maybe if we were face to face with everything on the table, the truth would come out. Dan was hesitant. Mom says he actually flat out refused at first, but by the next day he texted her that he had spoken to Emily and they agreed to a meeting at Mom's house. I think maybe Emily wanted to come plead her case to Mom more, and Dan wanted to prove to Mom that she's innocent or whatever. The confrontation. So yesterday, we all met at our mom's house, me, Mom, Dan, and Emily. I was a nervous wreck driving over. Lily had flown back home that morning. She cut her work trip short to support me because she's amazing. And she wanted to come too, but I figured that might make it more chaotic, so she stayed back but was on standby on her phone. When I arrived, Dan and Emily were already there, sitting in the living room with Mom. The tension in that room. I swear, you could cut it with a knife. Emily was sitting quietly, looking down at her hands. Dan was next to her, arms crossed, looking equal parts angry and hurt. I sat down opposite them. My heart was pounding out of my chest. Mom opened the discussion in a very calm, family meeting kind of tone. She said we were here to get to the truth and clear the air. Then she basically gave me the floor to explain in front of Emily what I told her and Dan. So I did. I recounted the whole kitchen incident step by step, including what Emily said to me, the "you're really sweet, Jake" part, and how she leaned in. I was looking at my brother while I spoke, trying to convey that I'm sincere and not hiding anything. Emily wouldn't meet my eyes. When I finished, Mom looked at Emily and asked if she had anything to say. Emily finally looked up, and her eyes were already watery. She launched into her story. She claimed that I had been acting weird toward her all night at the dinner. Absolute bullshit. I was normal, chatting with everyone. She said when she went to the kitchen, I was the one who came on to her. Specifically, she said I cornered her by the counter, made a comment about how pretty she looked, then I tried to kiss her, and she pushed me away and I stumbled. She even threw in the detail that she said I'm sorry afterwards in the moment because she was so shaken and didn't know what else to say. That floored me. She took the detail of her apologizing, which she actually did because she was guilty, and spun it like she was just flustered from me supposedly assaulting her. At that point, I couldn't hold back. I interrupted and said loudly, "That's a lie, and you know it, Emily. I know shouting liar isn't exactly productive, but I just couldn't believe the crap coming out of her mouth." I turned to Dan and implored, "You have to see she's lying, please." Emily started full-on crying then. She said, "I know this is so uncomfortable and horrible, but I have to stand up for myself. I love you, Dan. I would never cheat on you, not even with your brother." The way she said "not even with your brother" was like it was disgusting to even consider. Not that I want her to find me attractive, but it felt like she was twisting the knife, portraying me as some repulsive creep. Dan was staring at the floor, looking overwhelmed and furious. He then snapped at me. "Why are you doing this? Why can't you just admit you made a mistake?" I got angry back, saying, "The only mistake I made was not calling her out the second it happened." Mom intervened then, raising her voice for us to calm down. Mom turned to Emily and said very directly, "Emily, look me in the eyes and tell me that Jake assaulted you." Emily looked at her and, through tears, said, "He tried to kiss me." "Yes." Her voice was surprisingly steady when she said it. Honestly, she's a good actress, I'll give her that. I looked at my mom, hoping she'd see through it, but Mom just looked pained and conflicted. I realized then that as much as Mom loves me, Emily's performance was pretty convincing. It was basically my word versus hers, and Emily has been almost like a daughter to Mom this past year. Mom knows me better, but how do you objectively choose when two people you care about are saying opposite things? I then pulled out what little potential evidence I had. I mentioned that one of our family friends, Rob, was at the dinner, and later told me he noticed Emily run out of the kitchen that night looking upset. I had quietly called Rob earlier that day before the meeting to ask if he observed anything. Rob said he didn't see the almost kiss itself, but he did see Emily leaving the kitchen looking really flustered, and then me leaving looking upset shortly after. He thought maybe we'd had an argument or something. He didn't press Emily at the time, but he confirmed that something seemed to have happened between us. So I brought this up. "Rob saw you, Emily. He saw you rush out of the kitchen like something happened. If you were so uncomfortable, why didn't you tell anyone then? Why did you act normal all night until I spoke up the next day? Emily wiped her tears and said, "Because I was scared and ashamed. I didn't want to ruin the evening, and I was hoping I could just pretend it never happened because I didn't want to come between you two." She looked at Dan affectionately as she said that last part, like she's some martyr trying to protect his relationship with me. I almost gagged. Rob wasn't there at this meeting. It was just family. So it was still her story versus mine about what Rob's observation meant. Dan knows Rob, though, and I think that did plant a tiny seed of doubt in his mind. I saw him furrow his brow and he asked her, "You really didn't mention anything to me, Em. You acted like everything was fine. Why wouldn't you tell me right away if my own brother did that to you?" Emily responded, "I was going to tell you, but I wanted to find the right moment. And I was afraid of what it would do between you two. I thought maybe if I just avoided being alone with Jake, it would be okay." She started crying more, saying, "But then he turned it around on me. I couldn't believe he would lie like that." She looked at me with this hurt, pleading expression, as if she were the victim. At this point, I lost my cool. I stood up and said, "I'm done with these lies. I told Dan I have nothing to gain and everything to lose by lying. Think about that, please. I'm your brother." My voice cracked on that last part. He still wouldn't look at me. Dan was busy comforting Emily, who was sobbing into his shoulder, and he just said quietly to me, "I think you should go." That crushed me. My own brother basically told me to leave our mom's house. Mom started a protest, but Dan was in full protective mode over Emily and said something like, "I can't even look at him right now, Mom. He's already caused enough damage." I didn't even know what to say. I felt tears in my eyes, and I just walked out. Mom followed me to the door, and before I left, she hugged me and whispered that she loves me and that she'll keep trying to talk to him. I just nodded and left because I was about to break down, and I didn't want to do it in front of them. When I got to my car, I just lost it. I'm not ashamed to say I cried. I don't think I've ever felt that kind of pain and frustration all at once. It was like grief, anger, and betrayal combined. I sat in my car for a while, unable to drive, just sobbing and punching the steering wheel. I eventually drove home. Lily was there waiting, and when she saw me, she basically ran to me and I broke down again in her arms. She was, and is, furious at what happened. She actually wanted to drive straight to my brother's place and rip into both him and Emily, but I begged her not to. I just needed peace for a moment, not more yelling. Later that night, my sister, let's call her Anna, 30F, finally called me back after seeing my texts. Apparently Dan had called her right after the meeting and gave her some version of events, likely that I refused to own up to my supposed behavior. So Anna was pretty upset with me initially. But I told her everything, calmly, from the beginning. There was a long pause on her end, and then, to my surprise, she said she believed me. She said something like, "I've known you both your whole lives. Dan has always been a bit hot-headed and blind when he's in love, and you've never been a liar." That made me break down in tears again. I've been doing that a lot these past days. Just having another family member believe me was such a relief. Anna is flying in next week. She was going to anyway for the wedding, but she's coming earlier now, and she said she's going to talk to Dan in person. She has a good relationship with him, but also doesn't take crap, so maybe she can knock some sense into him. Anna also suggested that we try to find concrete evidence if we can, because while she believes me, she thinks Dan might need something undeniable to break him out of Emily's spell, her words. So that's where we stand. I'm basically estranged from my brother right now. He doesn't want to see me. The wedding is in a few weeks. I'm pretty sure I'm uninvited at this point because there's obviously no way I could show up as things stand. Mom is angry at Dan, but also worried about him. Anna is on my side and coming to help. Lily has been my rock through all of this. I honestly don't know what I'd do without her support. As for Emily, I have not attempted any further contact. The last time I saw her was at that disaster of a meeting. I did send her one text before I decided to go no contact. "I don't know why you're doing this, but someday the truth will come out." She didn't reply, of course. Not that I expected any different. Emotionally, I'm a mix of numb and raging, if that makes sense. One minute I'm just exhausted and resigned, and the next I'm so angry at both of them, her for obvious reasons, him for not trusting me, that I want to scream. Lily suggested, maybe I should see a therapist to have someone impartial to talk to, and I'm considering it if this feeling doesn't pass. A lot of you asked what I want to happen. Honestly, I want my brother back. I want him to not marry someone who would do this. I want us to go back to how we were before, but I know that none of that's possible right now. If he marries her, I don't know what'll happen with us long term. If by some miracle he called off the wedding, I'd feel awful that his heart was broken, but also probably relieved. I'll try to update again if there's any major change. Anna arrives in a few days. I have a feeling that confrontation will be interesting. I'm praying, and I'm not even religious, that something gives and the truth comes to light. Because I don't know how much more of this family civil war one can take. Update 2. Final update. I honestly didn't expect things to change so quickly, but a lot has happened in the week since my last update. Buckle up, because even I am still processing the whirlwind of events that just went down. This will likely be my final update, and unfortunately, it's not the happy ending I was hoping for, but at least the truth finally came out. Anna to the rescue. My sister arrived in town a few days after my last update, and true to her word, she dove headfirst into trying to fix this mess. She sat me and Lily down first to get every detail of what happened, just so she had the full picture. Then she said she was going to talk to Dan alone. She felt that maybe one-on-one, she could get through to him without all the heightened emotions. Anna had a long talk with Dan. At first, he was pretty cold and shut down about the whole thing. He told her he didn't want to hear anymore and that he was disappointed she was choosing my side without proof. But Anna didn't let up. She basically went into full big sister mode and reminded him of who I am and who he is. She pointed out some inconsistencies in Emily's story, like how Emily didn't immediately tell him what supposedly happened, which even he admitted quietly that it bothered him a bit. She also told him to really think about why I would ever lie about this. Apparently he just kept saying, I don't know, like he was truly conflicted. Here's where things took a turn. Unbeknownst to me until after the fact, Anna had also been doing some digging on her own. Through a college friend connection, she managed to get in touch with someone who knew Emily's ex-boyfriend. And guess what? We found out that Emily was engaged once before, about 3 years ago, to that ex-boyfriend. We'll call him David. And the reason that engagement ended, Emily cheated on him. Supposedly, she hooked up with one of David's close friends. The friend confessed to David, and that blew everything up. This was all hearsay at first, but Anna actually managed to get David's contact info and spoke with him directly, with his permission. David confirmed the story. Emily had indeed cheated on him with his friend, which is why they broke off their engagement. He also mentioned, and this gave me chills when Anna told me, that at first Emily tried to twist it and claim the friend had come on to her, but when pressed, she admitted she initiated it. Sound familiar? So armed with this information, Anna went to Dan and basically dropped the bomb. Initially, Dan was in disbelief and even got angry at Anna, thinking maybe this was some kind of desperate smear attempt. It's painful how deep in denial he was, but Anna showed him David's messages recounting the story. Dan read the ex-fiancé's own words about what happened. Anna said she could literally see the realization hit him. He went very quiet and just asked her, "Did Jake know about this?" Anna told him, "No, none of us knew until now. Jake had no clue she was ever engaged before," which is true. Emily always told us her last serious relationship ended mutually. What a lie. Dan then asked Anna to leave him alone for a bit. She came over to my place after to fill me in. That same night, I got a knock on my apartment door. It was Dan. My heart almost stopped because I had no idea what to expect. He looked awful, like he'd been awake for days. His eyes were red like he'd been crying. I let him in, and he just sort of stood there in my living room, not saying anything at first. Lily slipped into the bedroom to give us privacy. Finally, he just said, "I talked to Emily." His voice was flat, hollow. I quietly asked, "And?" He sat down on my couch, put his head in his hands, and started sobbing. I have only seen my brother cry maybe twice in my life, and never like this. It was brutal. I sat next to him, and, even though I was still upset with him, I put a hand on his back. I was bracing for whatever came next. Through his sobs, Dan managed to get the words out. "I'm so sorry. You were right." I had to bite back my own tears at that. I felt a huge mix of relief, anger, and sadness all at once. I just quietly asked him what happened. He told me that after reading the stuff Anna showed him, he confronted Emily privately. At first, she tried to deny everything. She even claimed David, her ex, was lying, and that somehow I must have conspired with him, which makes no sense. I've never even met the guy. Dan said he almost fell for her denials again, but something in him just snapped this time. He told her point blank that she needed to be completely honest, or their relationship was over. According to Dan, there was a long silence, and then Emily just broke down and confessed. She admitted that yes, she cheated on her ex-fiancé and never told Dan because she knew it was a horrible mistake and didn't want him to think less of her. Then, with her past laid bare, he pressed about the situation with me. He said he told her, "If you could lie about that, how do I know you're not lying about Jake?" And that's when Emily finally admitted the truth about the kitchen incident, at least mostly. She admitted that she tried to kiss me in a moment of weakness and that I rejected her. She claimed she immediately regretted it and was terrified of losing him, so when I told him about it, she panicked and lied to cover herself. She actually said to him, "I only lied because I love you so much, and I didn't want to lose you." What twisted logic. Dan told me he didn't say anything to her after that. He just got up, grabbed his keys, and walked out on her. Side note, I'm honestly a bit surprised she confessed once cornered. I thought she'd double down forever, but I guess the evidence and guilt were too much. So there I was, sitting on the couch with my brother who was sobbing and apologizing over and over, and I was angry. I'm not gonna lie. Of course I was relieved that he finally knew I was telling the truth, but I was also so hurt that it took digging up her past and practically catching her red-handed in a lie for him to believe me. I told him exactly that, probably not very gently, to be honest. I said something like, "I'm glad you finally believe me, but did you really think so little of me that you needed proof to trust me? I'm your brother, Dan. I needed you to have my back." My voice was shaking, and I know it was harsh while he was already down, but it just all poured out. He just kept saying, I know, I'm so sorry." He said he felt like the worst brother in the world, and that I had every right to be mad and not forgive him. He also admitted that over the last week, Emily had been actively trying to convince him to cut me out of his life entirely, telling him that I was toxic and out to ruin their happiness. Realizing that was her plan made him feel even worse, he said, because I was the one telling the truth and trying to protect him all along. Eventually, his sobbing slowed, and we just kind of sat there in this heavy silence. I told him I don't hate him. I could never hate him. He's my brother, and I love him, but I'm really deeply hurt by how this all went down. He said he'll spend the rest of his life making it up to me if he has to. We did hug, both of us teary, and it felt like this huge weight was lifted. But at the same time, things are not magically back to normal. It's hard to explain. I think we both know that this whole thing changed something in our relationship. We'll rebuild, but it might take time. Aftermath. As you can guess, the wedding is off. Dan has officially called it off, and told Emily it's over. Actually, he told her to get out of his apartment, too. She's moved back in with her parents. That's the word I got from Mom. My phone blew up with texts from relatives once the news trickled out. A vague story is going around that Emily did something unforgivable. Dan didn't throw me under the bus in that public story, thank goodness. He just told people she betrayed his trust in a major way. Most folks are assuming she cheated with some random person or something. Only our close family and a couple of Dan's best friends know the full truth, and even then, they don't know it was a kiss attempt on me specifically, just that she lied and I got dragged into it. Believe it or not, Emily actually sent me a text. It was a novel of an apology/excuse. She said she's sorry for everything, and that she hopes one day I forgive her, that she was just confused and stressed, blah blah. I left her on read. I have nothing to say to her. Dan has been staying at my place the last 2 nights because he didn't want to be alone. It's kind of surreal. We've been eating pizza and watching dumb movies like we did when we were younger, not really talking about the heavy stuff much. Sometimes I'll catch him just staring off into space, and I know he's hurting and probably replaying a million things in his head. He loved her, or at least who he thought she was, and he's basically in grief mode. I feel awful for him, even though I'm still angry about what I went through. I'm trying to be there for him because I know he needs his brother now more than ever. Mom and Anna have been over to my apartment too, kind of having impromptu family nights. It's like we're all trying to close ranks and help Dan heal, and maybe heal ourselves a bit too. Mom told me privately she's sorry she ever doubted me at all during that meeting, even for a second. Anna is just relieved she could help get to the truth, and that we brothers made amends.